लोग बहुत ज्यादा सोच लेते हैं। हमको लगता है कि जब तक कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्लियर नहीं होंगे तब तक कुछ कर नहीं पाएंगे, बट दीज आर लाइक द प्रैक्टिकल कॉन्सेप्ट्स। और ये ब्रॉडली कैसे काम करता है चीज, जैसे आप लोग घर में कोई फ्रिज आया होगा, वॉशिंग मशीन आया होगा, राइट? तो कितने लोग उसकी डॉक्यूमेंट पढ़ते हैं पूरा? तुम्हें तो डायरेक्टली जाके कुछ ऑन करके कुछ ट्राई करते हैं ना, राइट? सो कोडिंग भी ऐसा ही है, सेम है। और ये जो डॉम है, इसके लिए आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू दैट कि the kind of background I come from, I'm not from computer science background, but I learned coding on my own. But when I'm learning all these things, I created some examples which will help me understand those concepts. So today for 10-15 minutes, I'm going to talk what is the mental model you should have when you are writing code of DOM. आज तुम्हारी फिजिक्स की क्लास है, पता है, फिजिक्स तो पढ़ेंगे, पर जो डॉम को इजी करने के लिए मैं कुछ एग्जांपल्स देने वाला हूँ. जस्ट थिंक ऑफ ऑल दोज एग्जांपल्स, देन it becomes easy. Okay, so first of all, सबको HTML पता है? Everybody comfortable in HTML? ठीक है. अब एक HTML डॉक्यूमेंट देखो, उसमें क्या क्या होता है. बहुत divs, ब्लॉक्स, बहुत एलिमेंट्स, पैराग्राफ्स, यूएल, एलआई, ये सब लिखते हो, टैग्स, एलिमेंट्स बहुत सारे क्रिएट करते हो. ठीक है. अब एक HTML की डॉक्यूमेंट को आपकी घर से रिलेट करो. सबके घर में कितने रूम्स हैं? या? किसी घर में तो 10 रूम है भाई, पता नहीं कैसे. ठीक है. ठीक है. अब अभी घर में 10 रूम्स है. उस रूम्स में क्या क्या होता है, जस्ट ऐसे सोचो. हर रूम सेम होता है? नो. घर में काफी सारे कंटेंट है, जस्ट रिलेटेड टू HTML डॉक्यूमेंट ऑल्सो. जैसे कोई डिव है, कोई छोटा होगा कोई बड़ा होगा. उस डिव के अंदर क्या होता है, और डिव्स होता है और दूसरी तरफ के एलिमेंट्स होता है. सेम है. जैसे अब घर लेंगे, हॉल लेंगे, हॉल में क्या होता है? हॉल में कुछ कबोर्ड्स होंगे. कुछ कबोर्ड्स में क्या होगा? कुछ चीजें होंगे. मे बी यू विल हैव सम टॉयज और सम डेकोरेटिव पीसेस. ऐसे किचन में जाएंगे तो क्या होगा? बहुत सारे डब्बे डब्बे होंगे, राइट? उसके डब्बे अंदर डब्बे होंगे, राइट? बेडरूम में जाएंगे, उसमें कबोर्ड्स होंगे, उसमें कपड़े होंगे, उसमें सूटकेसेस होंगे, राइट? और जो कबोर्ड के ऊपर है उसमें भी काफी डब्बे होंगे, कुछ भरे होंगे. नाउ थिंक ऑफ दिस HTML, all the elements as your home kind of thing. Everybody clear till this part? अभी मैं तुम लोगों को एक प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट देता हूँ. आपका घर में आपका मम्मी ने बोला चावल खत्म हो गया, नया चावल लाके डब्बे में डाल दे. So how will you solve it? You go to a shop, you get rice, then which room will you go to? Will you go to hall? Will you go to kitchen? So first, even without your mom giving the instructions, you know that, right? Because the thing that you are trying to put in the house, you know where it will go. You know it will go to the kitchen box. I mean, imagine kitchen is kind of a box. In that there will be a rack where you put maybe rice and आटा. उसमें भी rice का डब्बे में you put the rice, right? So what you're trying to do is, you know which element to pick up, which box to pick up, in that which sub box to pick up, and all the things. Now HTML element also do the things. So you made a web page. Now you have to make some dynamic functionality to it. तो उसके लिए क्या करना होगा? किसी ने बोला है कि ये जो पार्ट है राइट साइड पार्ट है, जैसे जूम में राइट साइड दिखता है, उसमें एक और एलिमेंट ऐड करो. तो पहले उस बॉक्स तक पहुंचना होगा. ये सब जो इंस्ट्रक्शंस है, it is kind of the syntax you can refer to it, you don't have to worry, but try to approach the logic in the same way. अब the problem statement I am giving it is a new thing. Let's say आपके घर में सब सामान है, एक नया टीवी आया, क्या करेंगे? It's a new thing. It's a new thing, right? So the previous example which we saw is changing or modifying an existing item, some parts of the item. Maybe you will fill the whole box, maybe you will fill the half box. Now if you get a new item, so first you will discuss with your parents, क्या लगाना है, डाइनिंग में, हॉल में, या आपके रूम में. You're trying to create a new thing. Then what will you do? After the discussion is made, let's say you made the discussion of, you will put it in hall. Then आपका पापा या मम्मी बोलेंगे, क्या बोलेंगे? फिर इसको उस रेडियो के बगल में रख देना, right? So that means whenever a new thing comes, first you decide which box or which, in terms of HTML, which it goes, and beside which element, or on above which element, on below which element you have to keep. You will decide, right? And there are very specific instructions to do all the things. Understood? So this is how you create the elements. Now everybody will remember this model. Do you think it will make working with DOM easy? Right? So these are called mental models. So whenever you face issue, when you are thinking ये कैसे होगा, relate that home to your HTML page. Almost everything is same. उधर deals होते हैं, इधर में cupboards, rooms, whatever you call it. Clear? Any doubts? Is it helpful? I don't know, people are not responding. You can hear me, right? Yes. Now, look at the next statement. Now the third problem statement is, I give you a statement saying that जो घर में सब पुराने कपड़े हैं वो सब निकाल लो बाहर. So what will you do? You go to all the rooms, find out all the old clothes by some criteria. Maybe they look old, but the same is the case in HTML, right? Let's say I ask you to remove all the images, right? Right? So you go to each of the elements, apply that particular criteria, or select all those elements with that particular criteria, and you remove and throw it out of them. Same is the case in DOM. Understood here? That is equivalent to delete. So the next problem statement is very simple. So आपकी घर में काफी पर्दे होंगे, like this blinders and sofa पे covers, table पे covers. So you said, or your mom or your dad says that इन सब का color change कर लो. Then what will you do? You bring the new ones for all the things and you go to each one of them and change it, right? So that's how even in DOM, let's say whenever there are different boxes at different places, you want all of them to change. You go to each one of them and change. So that's what I'm saying. HTML, if you look at it, is very similar to your home in terms of all the elements and all the things. There is certain content, there's a particular structure, there's a particular layout, right? Home में भी layout होता है, उसके अंदर boxes या cupboards होता है, उसके अंदर content होता है. Content कपड़े हो सकते हैं, खाना हो सकता है, मतलब कुछ और सामान हो सकता है. Clear? Do you think now you will be able to understand and do the DOM problems? Okay. Now I'm going to explain one more important mental model which will help you remembering all the selectors. I think you might be clear, but it helps. That's how I remember all of them. So let's say बहुत सारे elements है HTML में, छोटे छोटे छोटे. Now go to your school, right? Now I don't know how many of your school have announcement systems. Does your school have announcement systems? या principal या कोई management headmaster announce करता है. So let's say you are the headmaster of your school and you want to call all students to the assembly area. What is the instruction you will give? You say in the announcement, you say सब लोग बाहर आ जाओ. So that is like the universal selector, right? Now in your school, if you want all the boys to come down, irrespective of the class, what will you do? You will inform that all boys please come down. This is like the element selector. You are selecting elements by the tags H or paragraph or something. This is not ID. This is like tag. Now in the same way, you can give instructions saying 6th class come down, 6th A come down, or all A sections come down, or 6th A goals come down, right? So this is the class selector with certain combinators, right? So basically you are selecting a group of people by some logic. So that's what you are trying to do. That's how the CSS also kind of works as selectors. Now the final one, if you want to call one particular student, how will you call him? Will you use roll number? No. Roll number one to sub classes में roll number होंगे. With name? No name भी. Let's say if you are Abhishek. Somebody says phone number. Can you call it phone number? Let's say दो भाई लोग हैं, दोनों का phone number same होगा parent का. Full name भी same होगा. Abhishek Pandey. Yeah. Registration number. That's I think most of you might have. Right? That's going to be unique. So that's your ID. So if you are able to remember these mental models, what happens is your concepts of connecting with the problem statements with the real world becomes easier and you'll be able to solve all the problems. Clear? And also as usual with more practice, you will be able to get better at it. But if you approach the things in this format, I think things are going to be much more easier. Just try this approach. I'll try to connect with you every week once. So I'll keep on looking at your data wherever you I think you are facing problems. I'll come connect and try to give you these kind of mental models and kind of these small techniques so that it becomes easy for you. Understood? Helpful? Just don't listen to it, try to apply it. Okay, so with that, I hand over the class to Ritesh. He'll take you, yeah, to the French concepts.
Sure. Thanks, Nupur. Thank you very much. All right. So, yeah, hi everyone, and good evening. So, yeah, how are you guys, everyone? Okay. So, yeah, I hope you got a good idea how you can create or at least start creating these mental models, right? Take so again, when we're starting to learn something, right? There are two ways to learn them. Yeah, either you can assimilate it directly from theory, master ne feka, mentor ne feka, instructor ne feka, and you guys got it, or you understood it a bit, and then when you're trying to assimilate it, na, you're creating examples or sort of examples on your own. तो वो जो example बनाते हो ना, to understand that, that's your mental model, right? Right. So yeah, do start creating those. Those are very helpful. So take it. अभी have you कितने तरीके से fetch कर सकते हैं? There are multiple ways. We'll talk about it a lot today's session में. But the basic fetch that we did in yesterday's session, was it clear to everyone? Right? Have you guys applied? I have shared many of those links, right? API ka. So were you able to implement those API? Right? So you might have noticed that har ek API has a different query parameters, right? URL are different, and documentation, if you guys might have read, ek idea lagaoge ki, yeah, in somewhere, if you have to search for categories, you have to write slash category, else somewhere you might have to write question mark in categories. So it differs based on what API you're using and what documentation are you using. है ना? है ना? Like, have you guys noticed that? ठीक, अच्छा. But क्या होता है ना कि when we use this external APIs, you might have seen a word that is called fake before it, right? Fake or mock API. So these are just there for testing, right? But हमें क्या करना है? Again, if you guys remember जब हम DOM पढ़ रहे थे, we talked about something which was called CRUD. याद है? CRUD. CRUD. So in there, we just were not getting the data, access नहीं कर रहे थे. We were updating, we were deleting, and we were adding the data. Yes. For now, fetch को use करके हमने क्या किया है? Have we just gone through read phase only? सिर्फ read किया है? Let me share my screen. Right? अभी तक बस read किया है. And you guys let me know if my screen is visible, everyone. ठीक. चलो. So far in that fetch, we have just learned ki how we can access stuff, right? Now we'll see ki how we can actually create stuff from our side, how you can update or delete it. Functionalities are going to be exact same जैसे हमने DOM में किया था, right? So let's say if I want to delete a particular object from an array, what higher order function were we using to apply delete? Right? So yeah, so we were using filter, or maybe we might be using splice. Right? उसी तरीके से if you want to sort, you'll go with sorting and all. That works exactly as it is. Some way you can change it with your queries also. So we'll do that. Right? Uske baad we talked about something which was called ES6. So do you guys remember that? ES6. ES6. एक syntax पढ़ा था, just one. What was that? Was it of functions? Functions, right? So there are a few more things. It's not just arrow functions. There is destructuring, there is spreading and all. We'll discuss few details about ES6 in our today's and tomorrow section. And next week, when you guys will start React will be using ES6 syntax. Till guys will get more accustomed to it. I'll switch off the camera just a moment. Right, so next to HTML and yeah. Okay, I hope it's fine. Take chunk. So again, let's go quickly here. And we had two ways of creating function, right? So if I go and write script here, I can write function like this. It's called greet. And this, now if I ask you guys to convert this function into arrow function, how can we do that? Everyone? If I want to convert this piece of function into your arrow function, how can we do that? Simple, simple. This, we'll just write greet, we'll say this, and its arrow equals to your return help. Right? But there was one more small shorthand here. एक और छोटी सी चीज थी. Given that we are just returning a single statement, we don't have to do or apply any condition or anything here. Can we just write it in a single line? Can we just write it in a single line like this? लिख सकते हैं? Everyone? Right? So this is the way of writing arrow functions. I hope you guys might have applied it and abhi tak idea lag gaya. Right? So if I want to call this function, will it be any different? Kuch bhi different hoga if I want to call this function? No, I'll just call it like this and this. Let's say I want to pass arguments in it. Will it gonna be exactly same? A comma B. I'm just gonna accept it in here and I'll just add it. Right? So yeah, it's one of the syntax which was called arrow function, right? Uske baad ES6 also introduced few more techniques like destructuring and spreading. Right now, these two techniques are very useful. एक एक करके discuss करते हैं. Let's first discuss about destructuring. Right? So let's say I have an object, right? And this object has some data, right? So name, it has an ID, it says 01. Let's just keep it single. And then I can have, what can I have? Locations, played, I guess. Right, so this can be an array and all, right? So I can have, what? I can have Delhi and right? And then can we add an object here? Any idea? What can we add as an object? Maybe key value pair mein. Address, okay. So we can attach address, right? So in here, I can say that first state, right? So we can say this might be Delhi or something, right? And then we can have a city, right? So this can be anything like New Delhi or something. Right? So we have this object, right? Now, going forward, there will be a possibility that in object, we can have multiple different stuff, right? So object ke andar there is an object, then this object might have some object on itself, right? Plus, we are going to store these things in an array with these certain objects, right? So this is for just one player, right? We can have it for different players, right? So player 1 se leke player 2, player 3, and like hundreds of players. So let's say if I want to access one of the player ka city, how can I do that? Let's say I'm renaming it to player. If I want to access the city, I will be writing player, I will be writing dot address, and I will be writing city. Yes. Yes. ये करना पड़ेगा to access it, right? Now let's say that the thing is a bit more nested. City के अंदर भी like not exactly city का example taking, but in this object also we have something else, right? तो एक और object है and we want to access that object also. So as soon as the nesting starts, does it gets a bit difficult or like a bit bigger to access everything? Right? तो क्या कर सकते हैं? What we can do is we can destructure things, right? तो destructuring क्या होता है? We'll create a variable, and this variable will have an empty object which we are going to assign to our original object, right? And in here we can note down the keys, right? So let's say if I note down name, if I note down id, if I note down locations player, and if I note down address, no, ab kya hoga? Now if I just go and do a console.log of name, I'm just gonna directly use this name. I don't have to write player.name anymore. अब वो करने की जरूरत नहीं. ठीक. So now if I again go here, I'll be still able to access where. Clear? Clear? So that is destructuring. कुछ नहीं करते हैं. We just create a destructured object and उसमें we give certain values. Right? So how might this be useful? Let's say if you want to pass this object in a function, right? So आपने एक function call किया है and it's called address printer, right? And in here, like let's make a arrow function rather than this, because arrow function we have started using. So I can say const address, and this will have, right? Now can anyone tell me why I have used const here? Am I gonna update the object? Object को update करने की जरूरत नहीं है, right? I don't have to update the function बार बार. You can just directly do that. ठीक. अभी क्या करना है? I can go in here and let's say if I'm calling this, right? तो address printer को मैं call कर रहा हूँ with my player object, right? So now I'll be sending this entire object, right? तो अगर मैं यहाँ पे obj लिखूँ तो will something like this happen? Obj will have the value of player. ऐसे कुछ होगा? Have we discussed this? Parameters ऐसे deal करते हैं, like variables and all. ठीक. So yeah, let me zoom it out a bit. ठीक. तो now let's say कि मैं यहाँ पे इसको destructure कर दूँ, right? Because we know कि we don't need the entire object. All we need is just the name. So are we not doing something like this only? Right? हम क्या कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे? We have attached name and this. So let's say if I go in here and if I write console.log name, and यहाँ पे rather than just writing the name, I'm just going in here. I'm writing like I'm calling the address printer. So now if I go in here, I'm printing the name. Right? So now it's preventing the use of bar object.name, object.id, object.location. Right? So whatever key that you want to use, you can just go and add whatever keys that you want to use in this function specifically. You can just accept those keys and you can simply use them. Right? So again, you're going to use this extensively when you will be doing your React. Tick. So I hope destructuring is clear. This is what destructuring is called. कर सकते हैं everyone? Everyone? Right? Now, object में ही नहीं होता है destructuring. We can do destructuring in your arrays also. But arrays में क्या होता है ना? तो destructuring doesn't make a lot sense, right? What do I mean by that? Let's say I have an array, right? An array has 1, 2, 3, 4, or rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, let's write 1, let's write 2, and let's write, right? So in object like key, do we have something which is unique in array? My bad. Array में कुछ ऐसा है जो कि unique है? No, एक बार सोचो फिर से. Do we have unique indexes for each element? Right? But indexes identify नहीं करेंगे, right? So basically क्या होता है? We can go here and I can destructure it, right? So I can say a comma b comma c equals to your array, right? So now if I go and do console.log a, can anyone guess what am I gonna print? 1. Am I printing 1? 1 print हो रहा है here, right? If I go and write C, what will I be printing? Right? So basically, this is how you destructure array. But array and object के destructuring में there is a very small difference. The difference is, let's say I'm destructuring an object, right? मैंने object को destructure किया. Now this object has something identifiable which is called this key, right? So abhi, let's say कि if I change the order of these key, right? if I change the order of this key, will I be still able to access this specific thing when I write locations played? Right? तो अगर मैं जाके if I do console.log locations played, I'll be getting that itself. Right? But arrays में क्या होता है? Once we destructure it, ना, it starts following exact sequence. Right? So let's say कि if you take B, right? अगर आप B को उठाते हो and if you put it somewhere else, it doesn't matter. Right? Now, if I print C, na, it will print 2 rather than 3. Tick. So that's why destructuring an object doesn't make a lot of sense, although it's possible. So you should be aware about it. Tick. Here we can do it like this. Tick. It should match the keys, right, of object. Tick. So that's destructure. I hope that's clear to everyone. Clear है? अगर हमारे पास 3 इंडेक्स है एंड 2 ही एलिमेंट्स ले, आई थिंक यू गाइज ऑलरेडी नो द आंसर. Let's say if I'm just taking 2 elements and I'm gonna print C, what will I be printing? Can anyone tell me? 2. That was expected, right? तो जितना destructure करेंगे we'll be just accessing that, right? Curly bracket is important in parameter here. तो जब object को destructure करोगे, yes, you'll need an empty object, curly brackets. If you're destructuring array, you'll be having square. Okay, then the next theory part is called spreading. This thing is actually very useful, right? So let's say I have an object which has certain data, right? So this was data set 1, right? And data set 1 may we had basic info about user, right? So let's say we had their name and we had their age or something, right? So what if we don't know the length of array and we want to restructure it? So again, that's the point, no? That's why destructuring array does not make sense, although it is possible, right? So आप क्या करोगे? You will keep on destructuring up until the length is there. Trust me, you won't be needing this. ठीक है, चलो. So let's say एक data set में we have stored the basic info of user, and in another data set we have stored their address info, right? So again, this city and we have our state, right? But what we want to do is we are creating our final data set, right? A final data set बना रहे हैं, and we want properties of both the object in one object, right? दोनों object की property एक साथ चाहिए, so that if we print an object, I should be getting name, age, city, state, everything. So what's the process now? If I want to create a variable data set 3 which has both of these values, अभी के लिए कैसे करोगे? Plus, okay. So for now, what you will have to do is you'll have to start entirely, right? But rather than doing that, spread क्या करता है? All you have to do is we have to create a new object. You'll spread the older object called dataset 1, and you will set your another object which was called dataset 2, right? So before writing the name of the variable, you apply 3 dots, right? Or like stop. ये apply करने पे now what happens ना? If I go into a console.log of dataset 3, if I go and print it, am I printing everything in a same object? Right? So basically this thing is called spreading because we are spreading the object inside this. Right? Now what you can do is you can even spread like a new variable or object in it. All you have to do is you have to just spread this and you have to provide. Right? So that's how you can do it. इसके बाद after applying comma, you can just add things in it, right? So that's totally possible. Unexpected token, we are adding, okay, that should not be possible. Rather than doing this, you can start adding key value pairs. So again, ID you can add. Take what if we have same key? Good question. Let's say this one has an age and this one has an age of 40. What do you guys expect? क्या होने वाला? Both has same properties. which age is applying? The latter one, right? So we know key in our objects, the keys are unique, right? So that will still be very applicable, right? Applicable rahega, but the latest code will get applied on that key. Clear hai? Clear hai? So there's just this thing is called spreading. It's not something that is very big of a thing. If we change the position of dataset 1 or 2, in sense of object, will it matter if I change the position of dataset 2 or dataset 1? कोई sense बनाता है या matter करता है? Because let's say if I update this, right, and if I put it here, of course, first I'm gonna spread this, then I'll add ID, and then I add this. But will it matter in longer terms? Even if I wanna accept or access age, अभी भी मुझे age ही लिखना पड़ेगा. There is no system of indexing here, right? So it will be exactly as it is. It doesn't matter. Tick. So order for key and value pairs in JavaScript doesn't actually matters. It's fun. Take, can I push new key? Of course you can. Of course you can. Right? So you can just write dataset 3 and you can say new key equals to new key. Right? So this is inherently an object finally, right? Finally, वो object here. So let's say if I'm printing dataset 3 and if I check this out, I will be happy. Right? So new key and new key. It works exactly as an object, kuch nahi. Take why the order has changed after applying it. It doesn't matter again, guys. Order change hota hai, that does not mean. Object hai, you don't have to think about order in it. Take to JavaScript ke object mein there is no order. Right? So this spreading again also works in arrays also. So let's say if you have an array 1, 4, 5, 6, and you have an array 2, 7, 8, and 9. Let's say if I want to create a new array, or rather, let's have 1, 2, and 3. If you want to create a new array which has properties of both of these array, it'll spread it, right? Now try everyone, एक बार try करके देखो, can we do it just like this? But keep in mind, ये curly brackets will be replaced with what's this called? Square bracket. एक बार try करो. Can I redefine same key in same object? We have already covered it, but if you redefine same key in same object, the latest one will get updated rather than same keys we create. Okay? Correct, Shivam? Shivya, correct? Lucky log. Are you guys able to do it? Right, so nothing different. All you have to do is you have to, let's say we are creating an array, and in here I'm spreading the very first array, and then after that I'm spreading the second. Take now if I go and do console.log an array, if I go back, there you go. There is the array, right? Now just keep this keep this queue in mind, right? Or rather positions in mind, right? So we have 4, 5, 6, and 1, 2, 3. Take, let's say if I'm creating different like I'm out of names, so I'm just gonna write some random names. Let's say if I do array 2 comma array 1, right? And if I do a console.log diff array, am I doing something different in this second array? Right? So if I go now, it's printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So do you think in array while spreading will the order matter? आप लोग बताओ. Okay, some of you guys are saying no, some of you guys are saying yes. Right? So object mein why was it not matter? Why it didn't matter is because we were using dot notation or square notation, but it was using the name of the key to identify it. Here, the identifier is your order, it's your index. right? So in diff array, if I do 2, and if in n array, if I do 2, will the orders be different? Will I get a different result, right? So yeah, order matters when you're spreading in case of. Say, if we are adding string, then we have to use boundary like that. No, you should not be able to do that in string, right? Array on object पे ही you should apply spreading. String के लिए you have concatenation, so that's not an issue with string. ठीक है? ठीक है? Alright. Spreading clear है everyone? Spreading clear है? ठीक. Okay. Then there is one more thing which is called object shorthand. I hope we have encountered this thing yet. Let's say mostly हम कहाँ use करते हैं इसको? So when you'll use it is like for now you won't be using it a lot, but आगे चल के ना when you'll start to managing stores, right? तो आगे चल के you'll learn a concept like context API and Redux and all. तो उस टाइम क्या होता है ना कि you wanna have, let's say I have an initial array, right? इस initial array में I have some data. ठीक, I have some data and I have some data. अब क्या करना है, rather than just updating this array from scratch without deleting it, हमें क्या करना है, we are adding new data to this array, right? तो usually क्या होता है, we just go and do a pop method on it or push method on it, right? But assuming that we want to differentiate the order, push क्या करेगा, it's gonna add it to the end only, right? But if you want to add it to the latest section, all you can do is you can just take this array, just spread it and just add new things, whatever you, right? So few uses like that, you'll get an idea when you'll face some issues like this. तब आपको ध्यान में आएगा कि yeah, we can spread it simply. So that's how you can use it. Clear? ठीक है. Then we have something which is called object shorthand. Here it is. Let's say I have a value which has a name, right? Which has an ID, right? And this is 0 or 1. Take abhi kya karna hai? I want to create an object, and in this object, I want these key value pairs. So मैं क्या करूँगा? I'll write a username, right? Or let's say if I write the name, अब इसके अंदर I want to store the value of this variable. So will I be writing name again? Everyone? Let's say अगर मुझे ID store करना है and again I want to store the value of this variable, so I'll have to write ID again. So with ES6 you don't have to do that if and only if your key and value has exact same names, right? So जो value है it's stored inside this variable which is called name and it has exact same name as the key. So you can just write that key, you can just write one thing and it's totally right. So rather than writing the value like name and name, you can just write it once. And if I go and do console.log obj, na, I'll say कि it's totally fine, right? It stores name as name and ID as ID. Right. So it's also something which can save us a lot of time. Anna? Yes. Yes. All right. So these were few important ES6 new properties that have been applied. There's one more very important property which is called async and await, right? Or rather async await. Is my audio lagging, guys? Can you guys confirm? Audio lag हो रहा है? No, ठीक है. तो most of you guys are saying no. So I guess maybe refresh. Take chal. So basically next thing is async await. I have seen कि previous session में you guys have asked about this. So I'm assuming कि कहीं ना कहीं you might have heard about async await. Any idea what these things deal with? कोई idea है किस चीज से deal कर रहे हैं? Because usually क्या होता है ना, we know that syntax is that and we can use it like that, but we don't know the inherent purpose of it. Right? Like many of you guys have learned कि fetch का syntax 3 line का है, but you guys don't know कि fetch is a promise and how then and all is used. right? तो again async await जो है ना, these are something which are called syntactical sugar, right? अभी syntactical sugar क्या होता है? Applied to code, the result is not different, right? ये कोड में ऐड होता है even though previous code and after applying these code is exactly returning similar thing, right? But what it does is it makes the code more readable, right? कोड को मोर रीडेबल बनाता है, इजी टू रीड बनाता है, राइट? तो रिमेंबर कॉल बैक हेल्प को प्रिवेंट करने के लिए वी यूज्ड प्रोमिसेस, राइट? तो लेट्स से कि आई हैव अ फंक्शन which is called one and ये function was returning promise, right? Then I had another function which was called two and this function was returning another promise, right? अभी क्या करना है? First I'm running this one function, इसका जो result है I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna put it in the second function, right? So do you guys remember how do we do that? Promise chaining कैसे करते थे? Remember last session में we discussed dot then. तो मैं क्या करूंगा? I'm just gonna go catch one, right? One is gonna return us what? Returns promise. Then what I'll do is to resolve or reject the promise, I'll apply dot then or dot catch, right? I'll go in here and I'll write, we can start using arrow functions. So I can use that. I'll use a res and यहाँ पे what I'll do is I'll just call two with whatever res I'm getting. Yes, I'll just return this, right? अभी क्या होगा? Now this entire then finally return कर रहा है two. And what is this two returning? Again, finally, a promise again. फिर से एक promise return कर रहा है. तो this dot then is again returning a promise. So to deal with, should we apply one more dot then? ठीक, and again we'll deal with it. But do we have any dependency? No, so we can just directly use the res. ठीक, तो इसी तरीके से just for your promises only, async await is there. Async await क्या करता है? It deals with your asynchronous JavaScript. तो when you write a function, right? Let's say I write this function as a master function, right? And this function is going to be async function. So what I'll do is I'll tell JavaScript कि from now onward you are a function which is going to hold asynchronous code. Right? So now I'll say that this function is async function. Abhi, if I run through or scroll through these functions, can you guys guess which function is going to have asynchronous code? Right? So is it becoming more readable? More readable बनाते हैं, right? अभी जब हम एक function में async keyword लगाते हैं ना, we unlock a small keyword which is called await, right? And this makes usage of dot then very easy, right? So let's say कि हमने one को call किया, right? Now this one was returning a promise, right? तो हम क्या करेंगे? We're just gonna create a variable and we're gonna store this promise, right? So let's say मैं इसको res1 में store करता हूँ. All I have to do is to deal with promise. I don't have to apply then or anything. I'll just write await, right? So what I'll do is I'll await the response of this first promise. As soon as this promise is done, what I will do is I'll create another variable and इसको बोलूंगा I'll await res1. Basically इसके साथ I'm again giving it the value. What I'll do is res1 dot and I will call the another function two. Right? And finally, if I want to print thing, I can just do a console.log res2. Yes. So again, are we decreasing the number of code that we are writing? Dot then बार बार लिखना reduce कर रहे, right? So this is how your async and await replace or like not exactly replace. This is how we can use await in our codes, right? So again, syntactical sugar है. All they do is they attach more readability to the code. ठीक, तो there's a small catch. वो catch क्या होता है? You'll encounter this statement maybe for now later, but I'll just give you guys an idea. कि async function, these things ना always by default return promise. ठीक, तो बाय डिफॉल्ट दीज फंक्शंस ना दे रिटर्न प्रॉमिस. तो लेट्स से कि इफ आई एम रिटर्निंग समथिंग फ्रॉम इट, वो क्या करेगा, इट्स जस्ट गोना टेक दैट थिंग एंड इट्स गोना रैप इट इन अ प्रॉमिस ऑब्जेक्ट. ठीक, so let's say I have another function and this is called masters, ठीक, or let's say fact, क्या बोलूं इसको, template, let's call it template. ठीक, and in this template I want to call this master function, right? So do you guys think इसको मैं directly call कर सकता हूँ? Let's say I'm just calling this master function. ये master function क्या return करेगा? promise, क्योंकि we know this statement, async functions always return a promise. तो अभी क्या होगा, now we'll have to deal with this promise also. So whenever a code has a dependency over an asynchronous code, na, we can, like, we'll have to make that function async also. ठीक, so again you can deal it with dot then very easily, that's totally fine. But rather than doing that, if you're using async await, you can just attach async to this function and you can await this. Right? So now if another function has a dependency of a function which is async, हम वो clear कर रहे हैं, we are clarifying कि yeah, these two functions are related and they are using asynchronous code. ठीक, so we are segregating functions based on what kind of data they are reciting. Right? तो are we making our code more readable? Just think कि अगर हम dot then लिखते जाते तो कितना सारा statement लिखते थे. This thing looks much better. ठीक, but what will return master as in, so master by default will return, जैसे normal functions by default return undefined ना, उसी तरीके से master function by default returns a promise. ठीक, तो again this thing won't work, right? क्योंकि these things are just random stuff that I've written. हम fetch के साथ इसको apply करेंगे and we'll see कि async await कैसे काम. ठीक है, what is res1.2? तो basically res1 is returning us data from 1, right? One function was returning a promise, तो उससे हमें कुछ डेटा मिल रहा था. We have stored it in res1. अभी हम क्या कर रहे हैं, res1 को यूज करके दूसरा वाला फंक्शन रन करो. राइट, तो लेट्स टेक एग्जांपल ऑफ व्हिच एवरीथिंग विल गेट क्लियर. ठीक, तो चलो, हाँ, तो सेकंड एसिंक भी तो प्रॉमिस रिटर्न करेगा, ऑफ कोर्स. तो व्हेन दिस इज अ एसिंक फंक्शन, अब इसको जहां पे भी यूज करेंगे, इफ वी आर गिविंग डिपेंडेंसी, विल हैव टू मेक दैट फंक्शन एसिंक आल्सो, और रादर जस्ट कॉल दिस फंक्शन. ठीक, तो द पॉइंट वाज कि जितने भी फंक्शंस में वी हैव डिपेंडेंसी ऑफ एन एसिंक्रोनस कोड, वी प्रोवाइड देम क्लियर सिंटैक्स कि यार दिस फंक्शन इज लेबल्ड एज एसिंक्रोनस. ठीक, चलो, so now let's discuss this in format of fetch, तो आपको थोड़ा और better idea लगे. ठीक, so चलो, let's do a fetch. Right, so let's create a function and this function is called get data. Right, let's now use arrow functions. Right, अच्छा, एक और छोटी सी चीज. So normal functions में if you are making it async, आप पहले async लिखते हो, right? But like arrow functions में the syntax is a bit different, not much, bit different. Let's say I'm making it let equals to get data. Now यहाँ पे you'll add async, right, before your brackets. ठीक, and this is async function. इस तरीके से you write async function in arrow function. Await and all will be used exactly as you do. Right, so fetch में very first step is to fetch the data with the URL. Yes, all. Right, so let's say कि हम एक URL use कर रहे हैं. Let me get a URL, placeholder or fake store, right? ठीक है, तो flake store वाला use कर रहे हैं. Let's visit tops. And in here we are using this programs. So if I go and pick this up, what is this thing gonna return? Line number 145. Fetch क्या return करता है? It returns a promise, right? So we have to deal with promise. Either we can go for dot then, but we are using async function. So what we can do is we can store the value in a variable and we can await it. Right? Right? उसके बाद next step क्या होता था? Use this data that we are getting from fetch and convert it into or parse it into normal functions, normal usable data, right? Dot parse karna tha, which was done by a function which was called .json. So all you have to do is just like this, you have to get the data and you will await again. You'll use original res and you'll apply res.json. Right? The original res pe we are converting it back to JSON. Right? Abhi kya hoga? Again, we are awaiting it because this thing is returning promise. We are awaiting it. Now I can just go and directly write console.log data. And if I just call this function, let's see what happens. Right? So if I go back in here in document, am I getting the data? Mil raha hai? And is it much more better to read from your dot then and all? Right? So yeah, this is how you use async and await functions. ठीक है? Easy है? Easy है? All right. There's one more small thing. So जैसे dot then use करते थे, तो let's say if there was an error, we were using dot catch, right? Dot catch use करके we were fixing the error. Right? उसी तरीके से for async await now we have blocks, right? So we have try and catch block. So basically try and catch is again like if and else. So we'll have two of these. एक catch block होगा and in here we'll catch the error. Right? So try में क्या करेंगे? We'll put our original code and in some case if this original code gives an error, अगर कोई API नहीं चल रहा है, if it's not responding or anything, status code 404 आ रहा है, we'll enter this catch and इसमें you can just go and print the error. Okay, so again, if you want to do error handling, you can go for try and catch block, nothing else. Tick line 151 shouldn't we deal with get data because it again returns promise. So when the thing is that we are, जैसे you guys remember prefix and postfix, याद है? Right? तो जो dot then होता है ना, it works postfix kind of. पहले वो प्रॉमिस रिटर्न करता है फिर उसके साथ डील करता है। इन एसिंक अवेट क्या होता है? वी डायरेक्टली अवेट द डेटा, राइट? अवेट करते हैं ऑलरेडी प्रॉमिस एंड देन द प्रॉमिस रिटर्न समथिंग एंड देन वी कैन डायरेक्टली यूज इट। तो फिर से यू डोंट हैव टू अवेट इट, जस्ट दीज टू लाइंस विल डू टोटली फाइन। ठीक है? ठीक है, तो वो हम पहले ही डील कर लो, वी डोंट हैव टू डील विद इट लेटर। क्लियर गाइस? क्लियर है एवरीवन? Any doubt so far? ES6 का नए syntax में, like it's not very tough, I hope, right? And it's decreasing, but syntax is tough. तो syntax tough नहीं है, trust me. Once you start using it extensively ना, the thing will get your muscle memory. ठीक, तो trust me, जब React चालू होगा ना, you're just gonna use ES6 वाले syntax है, तो it won't be a issue कि यार याद नहीं रह रहा हूँ। ठीक, so while calling get data function, we don't have to use dot then. No, not exactly. If you wanna, you can. I mean, it's not an issue because get data, given that it's an async function, finally it's going to return a promise. So of course you can go and use dot then, but you don't have to. Right? Possibility है, but optional है. आपकी मर्जी के ऊपर है. If you want to increase your task, of course you're welcome. You can do a dot then. नहीं करना है, it's totally. Make sense? सिर्फ एरर को कैच करने के लिए करते हैं, या ट्राई कैच इज देयर फॉर दैट। ठीक, टुमारोज पीएससी, यस आई विल टेक, विल हैव टू डिस्कस फ्यू मोर थिंग्स अपॉन फेच एंड ऑल। ठीक, तो कुछ फाइनल टचेस है इन जावास्क्रिप्ट व्हिच विल डू इन यस टुमारो सेशन। ठीक, तक आदत हो चुकी होती, बट अगेन गाइस देखो, आदत हो चुकी होती वाला बात नहीं है। लेट्स से if you go in class 10th, right? तो class 10th में you can write essays लिख सकते हो, right? तो if I tell you guys कि यार इंडिया पे ऐसे लिखो, can you very easily write that, right? 4 लाइन लिखने के लिए बोलूंगा, लिख दोगे? But if you haven't gone through your class 1 to 5, आपने अल्फाबेट्स कभी सीखे ही नहीं, तो can you write article, right? तो बेसिक जावास्क्रिप्ट इज योर अल्फाबेट्स, वो पहले सीखना पड़ेगा, तभी ना अपडेटेड वर्जन सेंस बनाएगा, राइट? तो इट्स अगेन ऑल अबाउट मेकिंग सेंस फ्रॉम फंडामेंटल्स ओनली। ठीक, तो अगेन आई हैव सीन पीपल दे लिटरली यार ये रिमेंबर कर लेते हैं कि फेच कैसे होता है 3 लाइन एंड दैट्स ऑल, राइट। फेच याद कर लेते कि 3 लाइन लिखना है, फेच डॉट देन एंड ऑल। उनसे अगर मैं पूछ दूं ना कि सेकंड वाला डॉट देन क्या रिटर्न कर रहा है, दे विल गेट कंफ्यूज्ड, क्या रिटर्न कर रहा है, आई डोंट नो, दे विल हैव टू राइट अ कंसोल, बट यू गाइस नो, राइट, क्यों मल्टीपल डॉट देन्स एंड चेन मेथड चेनिंग एंड ऑल इज दैट। सो या दैट्स द पॉइंट। ठीक है, चलो, so this is that. Now we'll have to move toward another section which is gonna be our JSON server. So let's do one thing, I'll give you guys a break of 3-4 minutes and then we'll continue, right? So everyone be back by 7. ठीक है। We're back. हाँ, अरे सब या नहीं, बैक, ठीक। चल, so I hope async await and all is clear, ठीक। तो next step is basically something which is called JSON server, right? So again क्या होता है कि when we use APIs like this ना, they have some fixed data set, right? So of course you guys might have visited through fake store API, कितने data return करते हैं for products? It returns just 20 data, right? 20 objects का array return करता है। right? So let's say if I wanna create more data in it, like have you guys not tried it or what? किसी ने भी try नहीं किया, right? So let's say कि you guys remember कि we created a admin side of things and उसमें we were posting things, right? तो हम अपनी तरफ से नया प्रोडक्ट ऐड कर रहे थे. You guys remember डॉम जब पढ़ रहे थे last week maybe, right? So let's say if I want to do something like that, can you guys think of a way कि कहाँ पे कर सकते हैं? Maybe you might have gone through it, right? तो basically क्या होता है कि again that CRUD things comes again. So let's say if I go here, CRUD, right? So we have create, we have read, we have update, and we have delete. So far, fetch use करके what have we done? Given that we have a URL, एक URL है तो अभी तक we are just reading the data. Data read कर रहे हैं. That's all. There is already created data, and all we are doing is reading and iterating over the data. बस यही कर रहे हैं, right? But let's say if I want to create our own data, right? We want to add new products. So we'll have to go somewhere which is called create, right? तो देखो fetch क्या होता है ना? Fetch is basically a function which takes two parameters. First one, it's gonna take URL, and second one, it's gonna take an object, right? इसके बारे में थोड़ी देर में डिस्कस करेंगे, बट ये ऑब्जेक्ट में ना एक प्रॉपर्टी होती है, we pass something which is called method, right? And method basically represent कि आपको fetch से करवाना क्या है, right? तो here fetch में the notations are basically CRUD के format में, if I wanna write for you guys, is that create के लिए we write something which is called post, right? So basically we wanna post data in database. Make sense? When we create new data, database में we wanna post our data, right? If you are reading it, this method is called get, right? So हम database से get करना चाहते हैं data. Make sense? Again, then for update, we have something which is called patch, right? Patch का मतलब समझते हो? You guys know the meaning of patch, right? So basically fix things, or rather just update them, right? There is a put also, but for now it's not very important. Finally, for delete, there's a method which is called delete, right? So based on these methods, na, we like fetch को instruct करते हैं कि what you have to do with this URL. Now, when we are reading the data, have you ever seen me writing get? कभी देखा है मेरे को? Rather than URL, have you seen anything other than that writing? Right? So basically क्या होता है? Fetch by default has a property of method which is set it to by default get, right? तो by default जो method है ना, it's get, तो you don't have to write get forever, right? But let's say if you want to post new stuff, then you'll have to post, right? Post का method आपको लिखना पड़ेगा, ठीक ठीक. So how this happens and how we post and how we do and all that, वो आएगा अभी. But first we'll have to understand कि JSON server जो मैं नाम ले रहा हूँ, what is that, right? तो again, JSON server is nothing but a like replica of database, right? It's not exactly a database, but it's sort of a replica of database जिसमें we create our own data, right? So let's say मैंने दो data बनाए, एक मैंने बनाया product page का, एक मैंने बनाया cart page का, right? So I can do this in my this file only. All I have to do is I have to run a few lines of code, right? वो few lines of code कैसे run होंगे? I'm gonna run it based on packages of node, right? So out of these two words, have you heard any of one word? सुना है क्या? दोनों में से कोई एक word, या तो packages या node. Node, you guys have heard about it. What is node? What is node? So basically to run JavaScript code, you have to install node, right? It's basically your runtime for JavaScript, environment for JavaScript. तो ठीक है, JavaScript has some pre-written code, right? You guys know template? Template का मतलब क्या होता है? Have you ever seen resume template and all? right? So what does resume template do? You have options, right? You have multiple different options out of which you can select one of the resumes for your own use. तो उसी तरीके से यू डोंट हैव टू क्रिएट रेज्यूमेस फ्रॉम स्क्रैच, आपके पास टेम्पलेट्स ऑलरेडी पड़े हुए हैं, इट हैज अ डमी डिजाइन, यू कैन जस्ट फिल योर डिजाइन. उसी तरीके से नोड हैज सम प्री रिटन कोड, राइट, विच यू कैन यूज टू डू मैसिव डिफरेंट स्टफ, राइट. तो लेट्स से कि आपको चार्ट ऐड करना है आपके जेएस में, तो यू कैन इंस्टॉल पैकेज विच कैन सपोर्ट चार्ट, राइट. उसी तरीके से to create fake or mock server from our side rather than using someone else's, we use some package in Node which is called JSON server, right. एक पैकेज है which is JSON server, right. अभी ये पैकेज कैसे इंस्टॉल होगा, कहाँ से मिलेगा? So it is gonna retrieve from something which is called npm or in small cases node package manager, राइट. तो बेसिकली नोड लाइक जावास्क्रिप्ट का जो कम्युनिटी है ना, इट्स वेरी बिग, राइट. तो एवरीवन क्रिएट्स देयर ओन पैकेज, उनको जो भी दे थिंक कि या दिस थिंग नीड्स टू बी क्रिएटेड लाइक अदर्स कैन यूज इट, तो क्या करते हैं, दे क्रिएट देयर ओन पैकेज एंड दे डिप्लॉय इट फॉर अदर्स टू यूज. तो दे डिप्लॉय इट समवेयर व्हिच इज कॉल्ड नोड पैकेज मैनेजर, राइट. तो लेट्स विजिट npm and let's see what happens there. So in npm if I visit it, this is the homepage, right? So JavaScript package manager or node package manager, if I click on this, again here we have different packages, so you can search for packages. हमें कौन सा use करना है? We have to use JSON server, right? So if I click on it and if I search it, there you go, right? So let's say if I click on JSON server, so this is the package that we want to use, right? Now, like usually, abhi kya hai, they have deployed a new update recently, so it's having some alpha v1 documentation usable, but expect breaking changes. So for stable version, we are going to use a last wala version, which was updated maybe 3 months before, right? So again, you guys can find koi bhi package and how to install them here, but node ke liye, we are going to use an older package, so we are going to click here. Is pe click karunga. And it's gonna take us to this page. I hope you guys are familiar with this page, GitHub का, right? तो अगर मैं GitHub के readme पे आऊँ, I'll get instructions कि कैसे इस पैकेज को इंस्टॉल करना, right? So you guys are installing, you guys will be installing JSON server for very first time. तो आप क्या करोगे, आप लिखोगे अपने टर्मिनल पे npm install -g. This G means you want to install it globally. So सिर्फ project, just project, like let's say if we are creating our project in file day 12, तो सिर्फ इसके लिए नहीं, हम globally install करें ताकि we can use JSON server everywhere. So I'll install JSON server globally here. So let's do one thing. Let's just copy this code and let's go and run it. Right? तो हम जाएंगे अपने like day 12 वाले फाइल में and let's do one thing. Let's create another file. Right? एक नया फाइल बनाते हैं, folder rather. And this will be called JSON server, right? And in here, abhi kya karenge? We'll visit this. We'll visit our terminal, and terminal pe jaake, let me zoom this thing out. Abhi kya karna hai? Which folder are we gonna install it in? JSON server. So should we first visit that folder? Right? तो फिलहाल हम crash course में हैं. I'll do a CD. I'll do day 12. Right? So not day 1, day 12. And in day 12, we have a JSON server ka folder. So I'll enter that JSON server and I'll do this. Right? Now we are inside our JSON server ka folder. I'll just paste the code. npm install -g. Kahan se mila ye? There it is. Install JSON server. This is how you can install. npm jo hai, this will install package for your Windows. If you're using MacBook, you can go for Yarn. Agar someone is using pnpm, then you can go with this. But Windows wale, you can do this, and Mac wale, you can do this. Take, so you can install it maybe later. Abhi saath mein karo, that's totally fine. I'll press enter, and what it will do is it will start installing it. So यहाँ पे एक loading screen है, right? Once it's done installing, if I click on JSON server, now जो package है ना, that is installed, next step will be mentioned here, right? So first thing first, install JSON server. Have we installed it? Install हो गया JSON server, right? What's the next step? Create a db.json file with some data, right? So they have posted some dummy data. Let's just copy this data and let's create a file which will be called db.json. ठीक, तो यहाँ पे जाएंगे and we'll create a file which is called db.json. ठीक, and in here we'll paste the data that हमने ऊपर से उठाया था, right? This dummy data. And we'll start the JSON server. तो JSON server को start करने के लिए we have to write JSON server -watch db.json. मैं इसको copy करूंगा and I'll paste the command. I'll press enter. Let's see what happens. ठीक, तो क्या हुआ? Basically हमने अपने db.json को run किया and we have like somewhat hosted our db.json file for our use. ठीक, तो अभी क्या हुआ? Now in this JSON file we have a JSON object, and in that JSON object we have different endpoints, right? तो हमने एक post key बनाया and that key is an array of object that is stored inside a like endpoint which is localhost 3000/post. Comments वाला stored in /comments, profile वाला stored in profile. Let's do one thing. Let's erase this entire thing and let's create a product. Right, तो products का एक array बनाते हैं and this thing is gonna have an ID, right? So ID will keep 1 and we'll say name or rather title and we'll give some title. So let's say laptops or laptop, and we can add some detail like HP and 32 GB and all. Right, so we can have some detail in it, and finally we can have like a price. Take, and this price can be like let's say 70,000. Take, so now abhi dekhna, this server is automatically updated, and how many endpoints do we have? Kitne endpoints hai? Just one. Right, which is /product. If you want to add one more endpoint, aap kya karoge? You'll create one more endpoint with cart, right? Of course, this is an object, so we'll have to apply comma after each and every key value pair. Cart mein, again, I can go and add an end, right? So now do I have two different endpoints? ठीक, so this is how you create an endpoint. अभी क्या होगा? Now this URL is usable with fetch. Fetch के साथ ये URL use कर सकते हो. If I do control plus click, right? So let's say if I just copy this, let me just copy the URL, and if I paste it here, ठीक, तो are we getting the product in exact format जो हम fake store मिलता था? तो we're getting product in JSON format. ठीक, now you can create your data here. So let's say let's add an image also. So यहाँ पे जाके we can add an image. Let's find the image from Flipkart and we'll use. Right, तो flipkart.com से जाके we can find laptops. And I'll open this image in new tab and I'll just copy this URL. ठीक, so I'll just go and I'll paste it, and अगर हम जाके अपना server देखें ना, तो it's already updated with the image. Clear? So now we don't have to rely on external API. We can create our own API, right? It's not exactly an API. It's like a server, right? Mock server. If we have more, let's say 100, do we have to write all of them manually? No. अगर आपके पास 100 product है, तो writing them manually will not make sense, right? So rather than that, we can create an admin page and वहाँ पे we can create a form. So we'll not have to write ID, title, price, and image manually. We'll just put the names, we'll just put the price, and we'll paste the image URL. Will that make sense? वो ज़्यादा sense बनाएगा, right? So let's do one thing. Let's first start with this and let's try to understand. Okay, so db.json is fine. Let's create a product page, right? So product.html page बनाते हैं And in here, let's do one thing. यहाँ पे let's write a script tag, and in the script tag, let's create a function which will be called get data function, right? So let get data equals to, it's gonna be a function. हम इसमें fetch करेंगे, तो should I make it async? Should I make it async? Async directory restriction. Trust me, for now you don't need to think about directory restriction. It will start with your React and all, so you'll get an idea, right? And React के भी third fourth lecture में you will get an idea कि हाँ directory कैसे create हो रहा है. So for now, don't worry about things that doesn't matter. अभी के लिए it doesn't. ठीक है, फिलहाल you can go with anything, right? You have that freedom. But let's say if you want to deploy your product, you have to have one file which has a name of, अगर deploy कर रहे हो at least तो index.js, index.html. So that file should be there and it should not be present inside a folder or anything. यहाँ पे है ना, there should be a file which should name index.html and it will act as your landing page, right? Just keep that small thing in mind. अभी एक काम करते हैं, given that we are going to do a fetch in it, I'm going to write async and this thing, right? Abhi, just like we created modular approach, let's accept a URL in here, right? ठीक है, तो guys fetch करेंगे data. You guys write, how can you write await and fetch with using a URL which is called URL? Everyone लिख के भेजो जल्दी, we don't have much time, तो जल्दी से लिख के भेजो. How can we deal with promises in case of async, specifically fetch? Okay, so we'll await fetch with URL, correct? Correct. Okay, very. So all we have to do is we have to store the value somewhere. So let's store it here in a way. We'll do a await, we'll do a fetch, and fetch will be based on this URL. Once we have fetched the data, we have to parse it. So हम क्या करेंगे? We'll do let data equals to await and we'll pick the original वाला promise जो हमें ये fetch return कर रहा है, and we'll do a dot JSON on it. Yes. Now if I do console.log data, I can get the data, right? So let's get the data, but this time rather than using दूसरों का server, we're going to use our own server, which is this. Take. So now if I paste that link, what do you guys think is going to happen? अगर मैं अपने इस पे जाऊँ ना, I don't think हमने ये फाइल रन की है, तो एक काम करते हैं, let's run this file. एक product.html को रन करते हैं and उसके inspect में जाते हैं. ठीक, if I go in console, am I getting an array with the product that is stored in db.json? Right? तो easy है JSON server setup करना, आपका अपना personal server. Right? Very easy है. अगर हमारे एक image folder हो, हम उस इमेज की लोकेशन को db.json में स्टोर कर सकते हैं क्या? Of course you can. All you have to do is लोकेशन ठीक रखना. लोकेशन उल्टा सीधा नहीं रखना, लोकेशन ठीक रखोगे and it's fine. अपेंड कैसे करोगे? Just like you usually do. जैसे आप अपेंड करते हो normally. That's how you'll append it. चलो दिखाता हूँ. So let's say कि हम एक show data function बनाते हैं, right? So again, I'm not going to take very much time in it. Quickly लिखूंगा because we have created show data function a lot. तो I don't think कि इसमें किसी को कोई issue हो, है ना? तो show data function में we are gonna accept an array, right? And based on this array, we are gonna do a for each. Not this. We're gonna do a for each. Not again this, for each. And now if I use arrow function, किसी को कोई problem, दिक्कत परेशानी दुविधा किसी को भी? If I use arrow function like this, नहीं? ठीक है, ठीक है. In here, what I'll do is I'll create my div, which will be called document.create element. And यहाँ पे मैं div बनाऊंगा. I'll create a let title equals to title, and here I'll do a document.create element, and this will be paragraph, and title dot inner text will be equals to element dot db.json में title has a name of title only, right? तो directly element dot title लिख देंगे. Let's say if I want to create image, so img document dot create element, image बनाएंगे, and image dot src will be equals to element dot image, right? Again, I forgot image, ठीक? And finally, price, let price equals to document dot create element, this will be a p, price dot inner text equals to element dot price. इसमें किसी को भी कोई दिक्कत, कोई परेशानी? Just this thing, we have done it multiple of time. ठीक, div के बाद equal का sign. Okay, I think the code is fine. ठीक, what's the next step? We'll have to take title, image and price and we'll have to append it where? Div में. तो I'll pick div dot append and इसमें image, title and price. Does the location matter? यार I'm forgetting the words, पता नहीं क्यों, it's filling off my mind. क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Sequence, right? Does the sequence matter? Matter करता है? Yes. Like एक div बना रहे हो तो उसके अंदर अगर image पहले रखोगे, you will see the image first, right? उसके बाद ही आपको पैरा दिखेगा. ठीक, तो it's just like that. चलो. And finally, should we append this div somewhere which is present in this box? So should we create another div? I'm going to call it id container. I can easily append it in body, but will it be, फिर से word slip कर क्या? Will it be recommended? Body में append करना है directly? No. Why? Because we might have to create navbar and all, तो body में append करना is not really recommended. ठीक, तो चलो let's get the container. So let container equals to document dot query selector and query selector में will just put hash container, right? And container में will just go and container dot append div, right? But again, every time we run a show data, in case we are adding some new data, do we clean the older data? करते हैं ना? So let's do that process also so that we don't get issues later. So inner HTML, not array.inner HTML, my bad. Container dot inner HTML equals to none. And why do we use inner HTML rather than inner text or text content? Inner HTML की use करते हैं because we have to remove tags also. सिर्फ अंदर का text नहीं हटाना है, we have to clean the tags also, right? So that's why we go with this. All right. So now show data function is being created. All we have to do is we have to run this show data with an array. Right? तो अभी क्या करेंगे? We'll call this show data with data. Right? So if I go here, now are we showing the data? Data दिखा रहे हैं. ठीक, तो it's as easy as we have done previously. कुछ भी नया नहीं हुआ. Right? So if you guys have noticed now, last 2 weeks we are doing exact same thing. All we are doing is we are optimizing the syntax. Right? बस syntax को optimize कर रहे हैं, बड़े कोड से छोटा कोड लिखते जा रहे हैं. Right? ठीक, चलो. Now the second point was enough of getting the data and showing it. Fetch के साथ get data करके हम बोर हो चुके हैं. Let's say कि if we are admin और हम अपनी तरफ से we are adding new data. How can we do that? Get data वाला function repeat कीजिए. Okay, ठीक है. तो get data वाला function is an asynchronous function because we have applied a keyword which is called async in it. इसमें क्या कर रहे हैं? We are fetching, but जैसे usually fetch के साथ we were writing 2 dot thens, rather than doing that, async use किया है, तो we unlock a keyword which is called await. So rather than doing dot then and all, we can just do await. We'll fetch. Once this promise is returned, we'll do res.json. Again, given that this thing is returning a promise, we'll have to await it. Finally, हमें जो data मिलेगा, we are just passing it in show data function. Show data function में we are just taking the data and we are looping over it and creating elements. Nothing new. Clear? Chalo. So let's do one thing. Let's create a admin.html and let's give this guy some admin privileges. इनको data add करने का privilege देते. ठीक, तो चलो let's create a script tag, right? तो guys, db.json में data add करने के लिए we need title, we need price and we need image. तो should we create a form? Form बनाए क्या? For these three inputs? For these three inputs? So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's create a form. राइट तो अगेन स्टेप वाइज डील करेंगे. अभी ये नहीं सोचेंगे कि फेच में हम भेजेंगे कैसे, पहले तो ये सोचेंगे कि वो डेटा जो है वो लाएंगे कैसे. हाउ विल वी गेट द डेटा? So we'll have to create a form. Then form में we'll do e.target and we'll accept the values. Remember we have done this multiple of times. We'll create input, right? First input will have a placeholder and that placeholder will be products title, right? Title. Take the second input will be basically placeholder products image URL, right? Third one will be your this placeholder. This will be products price, and finally we'll have a button wala input which has a type of, what type is gonna be there for the final input का button? Submit, right? तो इसका type हो जाएगा submit. ठीक, and in here let's do one thing. Product.html में let's add a button so that we can visit this admin page, right? तो एक button बनाते हैं. Of course you guys can create CSS, you can add a nav bar and all, but for now we don't have much time. तो एक button बनाते हैं and this will be called admin page, right? Whenever this button is being clicked, id admin button, we have to send our user to admin page. How can we do that? Have we learned कि ऐसा कैसे करते हैं admin page पे अगर user को भेजना हो? ठीक, तो चलो let's do it. Let admin button equals to document dot query selector and यहाँ पे hash again क्या नाम था उसका, admin button, and यहाँ पे let's apply admin button dot add event listener. Event is click, and click करने पे all we have to do is we have to do a window dot location dot href. याद है? Remember, right? And all we have to do is we have to give the path, right? So it's simple, admin.html, right? Abhi we have a button. If I click on it, we are visiting admin page which has forms, right? Is page mein form. Chal, back to admin page. Is form mein, once we are submitting this form, we should be accepting the values here, right? So first thing first, let's get the form. The form equals to document dot query selector. We'll use tag selector and we'll just get the form. What's the event that is applied on form? Form पे event कौन सा लगता है? Form पे event कौन सा लगता है? देखो form लिखा नहीं कि आपका prevent default चालू हो गया. I don't know कितना पसंद करते हो आप लोग prevent default को. ठीक है, लगाएंगे चिंता मत करो. Prevent default will be there. So form dot add event listener and this will be submit, right? And submit करने पे I want to run a function. Again, we'll have to pass the event. So what I'll do is event, I'll accept it here and I'll create a handle form submit function and इसमें event को pass कर दूँ. ठीक है? Now अभी हम enter करेंगे let handle form submit function में and इसमें event accept करेंगे. And how should we prevent the default behavior of form? Event.prevent default, right? So जो भी parameter you have here, you can pick that and you can add prevent default. right? Right? ठीक है, चलो अब of course we'll have to call it. Now if I wanna get the values of this form, should I do event dot target? What do you guys think? Form values, right? Form values equals to event dot target. You guys remember? याद है? Let's do a console dot log and first let's check कि form print क्या कर रहा है. ठीक, तो हम values पे जाते हैं. Here if I submit something, right? Let's submit random stuff, anything and anything. If I submit it, am I getting this entire form element? ठीक, and if you guys remember, this thing is a node list, so I can access each and every input by writing an index, है ना? है ना? So all we have to do is we have to go here and यहाँ पे let title equals to form values 0 dot value. याद आया? Remember? Remember? ठीक, उसी तरीके से let image equals to form values 1 dot value. उसी तरीके से let price equals to form values 2 dot value. ठीक, तो now let's create an object of these things. So object के अंदर given that the key and value have exact same name, can we use ES6 wala object shorthand? Right? So rather than writing this entire thing, we can just write title, we can just write image, and we can just write price. That's all. Abhi, let's do one thing. Let's just console these things quickly. So console.log object. Okay, so we'll go back here and यहाँ पे let's add stuff, let's add stuff, and let's add stuff. Take 1, 2, 3. If I submit it, am I getting an object with proper defined stuff? Take एक चीज missing है. What is that? What is different from your db.json? ID is missing, right? So we should be giving things ID. तो अभी क्या होगा? Now the ID should be randomly generated. तो let's do one thing. Rather than accepting things and all, अभी क्या करेंगे? हम यहाँ पे जाएंगे and we'll give it a random ID, right? So ID randomly, there are packages to do this, right? But packages you'll learn more about it in React. For now हम क्या करेंगे? We'll just create a random number, right? तो हम math.random यूज करके एक random number यूज करेंगे and we'll just make this string stringify, right? तो to string में convert कर. ठीक, तो I'm just picking a random number and I'm just converting into string, right? तो it's a random number, it will be unique रहेगा. Take, what is the purpose of ID? Purpose of ID will be that now we are not using array, right? Like we used to use in last week. अभी क्या कर रहे हैं? We are using database. So database में if we have an object ना, we should give them a unique property so that these objects can be identified. Right? Unique property should be there. क्यों? Because later you guys will notice कि let's say if I want to delete some product ना, मुझे क्या करना पड़ेगा? With URL ना, URL के साथ I'll have to provide the ID of that product if I want to delete it. Right? अगर मुझे product को delete करना है ना, तो मुझे उसके ID चाहिए. तो we have to give them unique ID. Clear? Clear? जब हम delete करेंगे तो ID will make more sense. But for now, just keep in mind कि every object ना, which we are storing in our database, it's mandatory to give this thing a unique ID. ठीक है? Can we do that? कर सकते हैं? ठीक. तो let's come here. अभी क्या हुआ? Now we have received the object, we have created the object. What's the next step? To send this object in db.json? db.json में store कराना है. Right? So do you guys remember the method thing that we discussed? याद है? Again, we'll have to write fetch. Right? Fetch फिर से लिखना होगा. But this time with the URL, ना? URL कहाँ गया? With the URL, we'll have to pass methods also. राइट? तो URL तो पास होगा ही, the object will also be passed, and in this object we'll have to write a method. What kind of method is it? हम डेटा पोस्ट कर रहे हैं कि अपडेट कर रहे हैं कि डिलीट कर रहे हैं? What are we trying to do? पोस्ट कर रहे हैं, पोस्ट कर रहे हैं, तो what we'll do is we'll make a post request. ठीक, अभी we'll have to give website few more information, थोड़ी बहुत और information देनी रहती है, like what kind of data are we trying to post? So what kind of data are we trying to post? Are we trying to post JSON data? JSON type of data we're trying to post. तो वो कहाँ जाता है? It goes in a key which is called headers, right? And this headers is an object. In this, you have to just remember one key which is called content and title, right? Even I don't remember correctly, spelling was this only, but I hope like it was not title, I guess it was type, right? We'll see, I'll get an error if this is not type, but type may we have to fill it's an application which is of JSON, right? So again, these 2-3 lines you guys have to keep in mind, क्योंकि you won't have to write a different thing, just ये चीजें ही लिखनी है. Finally, you have to tell कि आप post क्या करना चाहते हो, which is sent inside body. So what do we have to post? What do we want to post? We want to post this object. Object post करना है, we'll write the object. अभी एक छोटा सा इश्यू है, राइट? इश्यू क्या है आप लोग खुद पॉइंट आउट करना. हम क्या करते हैं, हमारे पास अगेन गाइज ये रहा F और ये रहा B. क्या है मतलब, ये F और ये रहा B. फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड, फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड, राइट? फ्रंट एंड बैक एंड. तो फ्रंट एंड से बैक एंड में जब डेटा सेंड करते हैं एंड बैक एंड से फ्रंट एंड में जब डेटा सेंड करते हैं, वी यूज समथिंग विच इज कॉल्ड फेच, राइट? फेच का यूज करते हैं, फेच का यूज करते हैं. नाउ इफ वी आर डीलिंग विद जेसन डेटा, जब हम बैकएंड से फ्रंट एंड में डेटा ब्रिंग करते हैं, डू वी हैव टू डू अ डॉट पार्स, डॉट पार्स करते हैं टू कन्वर्ट द जेसन डेटा इनटू अ यूजेबल फॉर्मेट. So agar according to you, if we are sending now data from our front end to supposed back end, what should we do? Should we stringify it? Data को stringify करना sense बनाएगा, right? So all we have to do is we have to apply a JSON dot stringify, and in here now we'll post the object. देख अभी क्या करेंगे, once we are done with this fetch request ना, we don't have to await or anything, right? Although you can await a response, आप response await कर सकते हो कि if it's done or not, but rather than that मैं क्या करूँगा, once this code is done running ना, I can write an alert कि product has been added. तो मैं यूजर को एक alert डाल दूंगा कि yeah, this fetch ran successfully and your product has been added. Right? So let's go and try to add the product, right? Product add करने का try करते हैं. So what do we want to add? Let's say we want to add mobile. ठीक, तो I'll go here, I'll access a product. ये क्या हुआ? अच्छा, it opened a new tab. Let's get this image. Let me copy this. प्रोडक्ट का इमेज URL गॉन, प्रोडक्ट का टाइटल इज मोबाइल फोन सुपर फास्ट वेरी गुड, राइट? एंड प्राइस, let's keep it this, and if I submit it, are we getting product has been added, right? प्रोडक्ट ऐड हो गया. लेट्स प्रेस ओके एंड जाके डेटाबेस चेक करते हैं. तो db.json में have we attached a new product? कर दिया. And have we given it a random ID? ठीक. Now the next step is to get that data in product HTML. So given that it's doing db.json का scratch से ही fetch, so it's gonna update accordingly. All we have to do is यहाँ पे we'll have to attach a button so that we can visit from admin page to product page and product page to admin page. तो चलो एक button quickly add कर देते हैं admin page पे भी. Before the forms, of course, you guys can create a nav bar. I'll leave that to you guys. product page, right? Again, let me just quickly do this. Product button, let product button document dot query selector hash product button and product button pay. Product button pay, I'll add an event listener, which is going to click. And once this thing is clicked, I'm gonna run window dot location dot href, and it's gonna send us to product dot html. ठीक है, ठीक है, चलो अभी प्रोडक्ट पेज पे ऐड कर दिया. तो इफ आई गो ऑन प्रोडक्ट पेज, आर वी शोइंग द न्यू डेटा? नया डेटा दिख रहा है, राइट? तो इजी है टू गेट द डेटा एंड टू पोस्ट द डेटा. आसान, राइट? राइट, ठीक है, ठीक है. वी हैव 10 minutes, सो डिलीट वाला मेथड भी क्विकली कवर कर ले. लाइक डिलीट इज लिटरली द इजीएस्ट मेथड, ठीक? सो दैट यू गाइस कैन क्रिएट एप्लीकेशन इन हाइंडसाइट. ठीक, तो चलो चलो लेट्स क्विकली अटैच डिलीट वाला बटन ऑल्सो. तो डिलीट बटन कहाँ पे अटैच होगा? Where should we attach delete button? In the box only, in the product only, है ना, है ना? तो let's do one thing. Let's create let delete button equals to document dot create element, and we are creating a button, right? Again, button delete button dot inner HTML will be delete, right? And maybe we can add an emoji or something. This box that we have already done. And finally, delete button pay, we have to add a event listener, which is whenever this thing is clicked, हमें क्या करना है? We have to send something in your handle delete function, right? वो delete function handle करेंगे. But is there something which is unique to just this product? इस प्रोडक्ट के लिए यूनिक है क्या कुछ हमारे पास? Do we have the ID which is unique? ID which has stored which is unique. So we are going to use this ID. तो क्या करेंगे? We'll go here and we're going to send the ID, right? Rather element dot ID. Take now we'll come and create a function let handle delete equals to this thing, right? And we'll accept the ID. Abhi, let's do one thing. Let's just quickly do a console.log of this ID. Let's see if we are getting the ID or not. ठीक, ID मिल रहा है या नहीं मिल रहा है, देखते हैं. ठीक, so now if I go and let's refresh it, we are not showing delete button because we might not have appended it. हाँ, तो append नहीं किया है. Let's append it. तो delete button append हो गया. चलो, we have a delete button. So if I click on this delete button, मुझे ये वाले ID मिल रही है. If I click on this delete button, मुझे ये वाले ID. ठीक, अच्छा. अब नेक्स्ट स्टेप इज, आप सोच के बताओ, कैन आई और शुड आई अप्लाई अ स्प्लाइस और फिल्टर ऑन? विल दैट मेक सेंस? स्प्लाइस या फिल्टर लगा? अच्छा, ठीक ठीक, चलो थिंक अबाउट दिस, एक बार सोचो. इफ आई अप्लाई स्प्लाइस और फिल्टर, विल आई बी अप्लाइंग ऑन दिस एरे, दिस डेटा एरे? यस, डेटा एरे पे अप्लाई करूंगा, डेटा एरे पे अप्लाई करूंगा. But if I refresh the page, will I run this get data function again? ये get data function फिर से run करेगा, right? Is it fetching from db.json? So are we removing the data from db.json? Yes or no? If we are doing splice or filter, नहीं कर रहे, right? तो देखो अगेन गाइस, इट्स अगेन डिपेंडेंट ऑन व्हाट काइंड ऑफ डेटाबेस यू आर यूजिंग. जेसन सर्वर में क्या होता है, मेथड विल बी सेम, राइट? यहाँ इज द प्रोडक्ट पेज, राइट? तो इन आवर डिलीट फंक्शनैलिटी ना, विल हैव टू डू अ फेच अगेन, right? It will be on this URL only, right? And we are gonna add an object. इस ऑब्जेक्ट का मेथड क्या होगा? कैन यू गाइस गेस? वी हैव टू डिलीट इट. व्हाट विल बी द मेथड? डिलीट तो the method will be delete. ठीक, should we add a header? Do we have to tell you what kind of thing we are deleting? So let's add the method content type, and that will be application slash JSON. But do you guys think we need to add a body? Body add करना है? Are we trying to send some data? Right? We don't need to add any body because delete कर रहे हैं, we are not adding anything. We are not updating anything. So delete में you don't need body. Although you have accepted the ID. तो आप क्या करोगे? After this product ना, you'll attach a slash and you'll make it dynamic. Right? तो यहाँ पे will attach a dynamic ID. Right? So now we'll pass ID here. अभी क्या कर रहे हैं? We are telling our fetch that there is this URL in which if I pass this ID na, I want to run a method which is called delete on it. ठीक, तो अभी we are instructing our fetch to delete this specific ID from db.json. ठीक, तो let's go and see if we are deleting it or not. Let's go here, let's refresh it, and let's say if I click on laptop, have we deleted it? हो गया क्या delete? And let's say if I go and check db.json, have we deleted from db.json also? Right? Right? So is it much more easier than filter? Filter से बहुत आसान है. Filter and splice से. You don't have to write anything. Everything is done by the API only. All you have to do is you have to give it an instruction कि कौन सा method हम लोग use करें. Clear है? Clear है? Now we are just left with one method which is called patch. We don't have time, so I don't want to start something which I can't finish in time. तो ठीक है, patch हम कल के PSC में cover करेंगे. ठीक, तो I will be taking tomorrow's PSC only. I expect कि आप सब आओ. It's not IE driven PSC. मैं लूंगा, तो everyone should join. We'll discuss few new topics. Plus we'll try to add few more features in our application. ठीक, तो I'll share this code. Do go through this application. इसी application में will making or will updating some features tomorrow. ठीक, and with that tomorrow we'll wrap up our advanced phase. ठीक है, स्लाइड शो वाला कोड कल ऐड करके दिखा दूंगा. ठीक है, सो जस्ट रिमाइंड मी कि स्लाइड शो भी एक बार दिखा दो. ऑल्दो आई होप कि आप लोग अप्लाई कर सकते हो, राइट? बट ठीक है, इफ यू आर नॉट एबल टू अप्लाई इट, आई शो टुमारो वंस कि स्लाइड शो कैसे ऐड कर सकते. क्लियर है? क्लियर है? ठीक, अच्छा पहले ये जल्दी से बताओ, किसी को कोई डाउट फेच में, वट एवर मेथड्स वी हैव लर्न सो फार?